And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang has the day off. He'll be back with us on Monday. Earlier in the program, we reported that there was a shooting that occurred in the nation's capital that involved two National Guard troops members who were shot, and it was initially reported that they were both killed. Well, now, according to Politico, they're starting to walk that back. The source of that story was the governor of West Virginia, who may have jumped the gun on the condition of the troops. So everyone say a little prayer, and let's hope that these troops pull through. The suspect is now in custody. There was just a press conference that was delivered by the director of the FBI, Director Kash Patel. And right now, this is a developing story. Obviously, the details change minute to minute. So we'll bring those details to you as soon as we have them available to us. Joining us right now is an old pal of mine who was a work colleague over at CNN when we were over there, 2015, 2016, 2017, I think was the time frame. You can get him online at thejeffreylord.com and follow him on X at RealJeffreyLord. Jeffrey Lord, welcome.
Well, it's good to be here. And John, I thought 17 was our actual age. I didn't realize it was that long ago that we were.
Well, if 17 was our actual age, then the Lincoln Project guys would try to have sex with us.
Oh, man. Somewhere Abe Lincoln is laughing.
Now, I don't know if you saw this, but there's some movement going on right now on social media to bring us back. Someone tweeted something saying what CNN is missing is the Trump supporters from that era when you and I were on there, and CNN needs to bring us back. And I guess that got retweeted and sent all over the internet. So there's a whole conversation going on about that. Of course, we'd have to agree to do it. That's the missing link in that story.
I can say for myself, I am happily ensconced at Newsmax. So there you go.
There you go. And I'm happy here in the state of California. Jeffrey, so much going on in the world right now as we look to the midterm elections where Democrats are hoping to retake Congress. Donald Trump obviously is trying to do whatever it is that he can do to prevent that. And one of the issues that Donald Trump is having trouble with right now is the cost of living. And I don't know if you see it this way. I'm curious to get your take on it. But I see the cost of living and the economy as being two separate subjects. They may sound similar, but they're very different. And I think from any objective point of view, the economy is doing just fine now. Whether you're looking at the unemployment rate, whether you're looking at the stock market, all of the markers that you would look at to determine whether or not an economy is healthy or not, we're doing just fine in terms of our economy. The problem is the cost of living, where people are paying a lot at the gas pump. People are paying a fortune, particularly in states like California, for things like insurance. New cars cost a lot of money because of the price of aluminum and steel and those sorts of things. And I know that the administration believes that they are making progress with their policies on reducing the rate of inflation. However, if they're going to do okay at the ballot box in November of next year, people have to see it, they have to feel it, and I think that's the big question.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And one of the things I have to say, having had some direct experience with this in 1986, the 6-year-in election, which this will be, although President Trump's terms was interrupted for the Biden years for 4 years, but that 2026 election stands placed to be, a hard one because we're that far in and et cetera. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if the American people things are going really well, then Trump is going to win. But the thing to remember is he himself is not on the ballot. And so you've got 435 House races and all these Senate races, governor races, all of this kind of thing. And we'll just have to see. And in the meantime, I live in the middle of Pennsylvania. but my late mom and dad were born and raised out here where I am now in eastern Long Island in Riverhead, the county seat of Suffolk County. And my drive out here yesterday, I noticed that I was paying $3.19 a gallon in suburban Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I got here and it's $3.29 or a little more out here on Long Island. So there you go.
Recently, President Trump met with the newly elected mayor of New York City, Mayor Mamdani, who is an avowed, self-described socialist, a DSA member, someone who believes that the government should own the means of production, including the grocery stores, certainly wants universal health care, has supported defunding the police, all kinds of boutique crackpot positions he has taken over the years. But when the two of them met in the Oval Office, it was a warm meeting. They were chummy with one another. And the reaction to that meeting was interesting on social media and elsewhere. And I think that people are reading too much into it. And I say that because Donald Trump, not unlike FDR and presidents before him, believes that he's a charmer and that he could deal with people, interact with people, win them over, and get them to move away from positions that they've taken that they regard as being destructive. We saw certainly FDR do that with Joe Stalin. And I would almost compare Trump's meeting to Mamdani as compared that to FDR's meeting with Stalin. I really do think that Trump, as a New Yorker, as someone who is from that city, who made his name in that city, believes that he could talk some sense into the newly elected mayor of New York City. Your thoughts on that summit?
Yeah, I think you may be right about that. But one caution I'd throw into this, and I wish I could. I'll have to go back and look up this guy's name. But he was a congressman from the Bronx, I think, in circa the late 1940s and very early 1950s, and he was an avowed communist. And as such, he became quite the symbol for Republicans around the country, including a young California congressman named Richard Nixon, who made this guy, who was from New York, a centerpiece of his campaign to get elected to the U.S. Senate from California. It worked. and I have a suspicion here that that Mayor Mamdani may well turn out to be an asset of some considerable means for Republicans around the country who have no connection in New York City, but they're just going to say, my Democrat opponent here in wherever, Wisconsin, California, Alabama, whatever, is supportive of Mayor Mamdani and they're socialists and communists, et cetera. So stay tuned for that. But this has been done before, and it'll be interesting to see if it is done again.
Do you think this is a flash in the pan for the Democrats, or do you think they're moving in this direction? And I say that because Go ahead.
Well, I think they are. I think there is a segment of their party that is moving in that direction. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And, I have to say, having been through some elections in my life, in 1972, when George McGovern was nominated, it was a mammoth fight between the Democratic Party establishment, represented in the day by Hubert Humphrey's 4 years earlier running mate, Senator Edmund Muskie from Maine, and there were some others in there. And George McGovern won, and the far left took over the Democratic Party. And they had a fight about it 4 years later, and Jimmy Carter sort of took it back. But my point is, I think that you've got that kind of split in there right this minute. And it's not by any sense resolved. And so we'll have to see how this happens. But I think a lot of Democrats are going to be busy fighting each other, and that's a real problem for them.
We know that socialist candidates have done well at the city level in New York, Chicago, Seattle, and elsewhere. But I want to run some numbers by you and get your reaction to this. When you look at members of the House of Representatives and how much money they have raised this year, meaning January 1st of this year, 2025, to today, the number one fundraiser by far was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She raised just under $20 million. The next closest to her is the Speaker, Speaker Johnson, who raised 11. She raised $9 million more than the Speaker of the House. Below Johnson is Hakeem Jeffries, who raised 8. And then below him is Ro Khanna, who raised 7. Jasmine Crockett below him at number 5, who raised 6. And then you've got the rest of them below Jasmine Crockett. What does that tell you, that Crockett and AOC are in the top 5?
Yeah, that branch of the party is really has really struck a nerve, and it's got a lot of folks, particularly young folks, I think, headed in their direction or enthusiastically supportive of them. And this is why I must say I'm sort of amused to watch Senator Chuck Schumer from New York sort of dance around all of this, because I think he is concerned she's going to challenge him for his seat in a couple years. And I think, on the other hand, she thinks she might run for president in a couple years. So we shall see.
Jasmine Crockett will likely not have a district that is winnable for her if the new map in Texas holds up. In that scenario, she has been hinting that she will run statewide for the United States Senate against Cornyn or whichever Republican ends up winning that nomination. What kind of statewide candidate do you think Jasmine Crockett would make in Texas?
I'm not so sure that that's a sell in Texas. I think that they have problems when some of their, and it's not just in Texas, but when some of their more local candidates who are to the far left get thrust into statewide races, it's a little different. I mean, one of the blessings of the American political system is that you've got, as I say, I'm visiting New York State. Well, right here on Eastern Long Island, you've got fairly conservative members of Congress and that sort of thing. And so is the case with upstate New York. You go into New York City and they just elected as socialists. So it balances, it can balance out. And there is an internal sort of push back and forth on this. And I think particularly in some of the southern states, it makes it difficult, more difficult than not, for somebody to get elected as a statewide office like Jasmine Crockett.
Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, announced recently that she would be retiring from Congress, that she would not be running for re-election. The last time there was a ton of speculation that she would be retiring from public office was in 2016, and she said she planned on doing that, but then changed her mind because Donald Trump was elected, and she felt that she had to stick around to protect the country from Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump was elected president again in 2024, yet this time around, she's saying she's going to call it quits. What do you think motivated her to do that?
To be perfectly honest, I think it's dynasty. I believe her daughter is on the rise out there. Whether she holds a local office at the moment or is running for a local office, state senator or something, I don't know, but she's very much in the mix. And, understandably, mother loves daughter. And, having grown up in Massachusetts, I well recall the Kennedys. And it was very interesting to see. I'm old enough to remember this, that when John F. Kennedy, senator from Massachusetts, was elected president, that opened up his Senate seat. And the Kennedys arranged for one of his longtime pals, Ben Smith by name, from Harvard, to be appointed and to the Senate seat to fill out the last 2 years. And why was that? Because they knew that Ben Smith had no long ambitions. He'd served the 2 years, and then in 1962, when youngest brother Ted Kennedy turned 30, the statutory age for a U.S. senator, lo and behold, Ben Smith said, "I'm not running," and Teddy jumped in, and we know the rest of the story. That was a Kennedy family setup from start to finish. And I have a feeling that in that particular area of California, this may be at play with Nancy Pelosi.
Do you think it could be also her reading the tea leaves? Because it seems like animosity towards older candidates right now is stronger on the Democratic side than on the Republican side, because Joe Biden sticking around too long, many of them believe, caused them to lose the presidency to Donald Trump. And then they look at their roster in the House and they look at their roster in the Senate, and they see a lot of people who look a whole lot like Joe Biden, and they're saying to themselves, okay, we screwed up with Biden, so let's fix it now, and let's go after some of our old hands and replace them with people who are younger, which could be why Chuck Schumer is in trouble. And I think a bunch of them are now facing competitive primaries, something that in years past never would have happened.
Yeah, I do think that's a problem for me, and frankly, that's a natural problem here. You just, as much as so many people would like to, you can't stick around forever, and particularly if you are holding a high-ranking political office in this day and age, where you're on the internet and television and everything every 2 seconds, people are watching you as they watch Joe Biden and saying, this isn't working. We've got to get somebody younger, and I think that is going to happen with a lot of these Democrats that have been there till they're sort of more than long in the tooth.
Don't know if you saw it, but there was a forum at the University of Southern California, moderated by CNN's Alex Michelson, where they were doing a postmortem on the 2024 presidential election. And one of the panelists was a guy by the name of Tom Donilon, who was a longtime advisor to President Biden. Yeah. And Donilon said, and this is a guy who's as close to Joe Biden as anyone on planet Earth, that the mistake that the Democrats made in 2024 was not sticking with Joe Biden. That Joe Biden was the most electable Democrat in the United States of America in 2024. And the fact that they all stood in line to stab him in the back was what caused them to lose the election. When I saw that, you had to chuckle a little bit because you know that that's not true. But it is a window of insight as to what type of advice Joe Biden was getting from his inner circle all through the 2024 election. They were completely divorced from reality.
Well, the thing is, with that, having worked in Washington a long time and seen this at play, you get folks like that, and they are, these people become, I hate to use the phrase, but like a meal ticket. And if you are working for a senior a senior member of the legislature or what have you, and the potential is that they would leave, then that means what are you going to do? If you're married, you got kids and all of that kind of stuff, you're going to have to get a new job. And one of the obvious things that happens is if you've been a loyalist to, Senator X, and Senator X leaves, he can leave behind all sorts of enemies who say, yeah, we didn't like him then, but now we don't have to kowtow to him, so we're not going to hire his old staff guy. So it's a problem for sure.
And that's kind of what happens to entertainers, too. I remember back when Frank Sinatra was a certain age and he was forgetting lyrics to songs and falling down on stage. They kept putting him out there on tour because the guy kept selling out arenas and stadiums, and especially in Japan where he was white hot, and he was embarrassing himself. But the people around him didn't care because they all made money off of Frank Sinatra working.
Yeah. I got to see him in person. He had run the Kennedy inaugural festivities back in 1961, and 20 years later, his friend Ronald Reagan asked him to do the same, and he put together all these inaugural ball and concert festivities and all of that kind of thing. I remember going in to see the man I was working for, Drew Lewis, who had just been appointed Reagan's Secretary of Transportation, and it was inauguration night, and I'm walking down the hall of this hotel to find Drew's room, and who do I pass but Frank Sinatra? Blew my mind.
Chairman of the board. Jeffrey Lord. You can watch him on Newsmax and follow him on X at Real Jeffrey Lord. Jeffrey Lord, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful
John,
Thanksgiving.
One thing, just as we were talking here, it just flashed on my phone that those two National Guardsmen were critically wounded, not killed. So just FYI.
Great news, and it sounds like some prayers were answered there.
Yeah. Hopefully that's accurate news, but it was a bulletin from Fox or something that flashed on my phone.
All right. Jeffrey Lord, thanks so much.
Okay, John. Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us, all you have to do is subscribe to the podcast edition of the program, and boom, they just load automatically to your phone, and you can enjoy the program whenever and wherever you'd like. All right, I want to go back to a point that I made during the interview with Jeffrey Lord about who's raising what kind of money in Congress. And normally, that's not something that's a relevant fact to the average person, because the way it works in Congress is if you are a committee chairman, you've been around a long time, you have a large degree of influence over legislation, you're in leadership, you're someone who has a lot of power, you can raise the money because everyone needs something from you. If you're a Democrat, that usually means labor needs something from you. Sometimes certain industries need something from you. Certain interest groups need something from you. So they belly up to the bar and they pull out their checkbook and they write you a check because it's a transactional sort of thing. You have other politicians who raise money not because they're in positions of power, because not every member of Congress is equal. If you're a backbencher or you're a bomb thrower, you probably aren't the one who's there negotiating the final details of the bill. You're someone that appears on cable news. You're someone that appears on social media all the time. People know who you are, so you're famous, but you're not necessarily powerful. And typically, it's the powerful people that are able to raise the money because they have something to sell. And if you're just a loudmouth, you really don't have much to sell, which is why these numbers should get your attention. And I'm going to go through it one more time because it's important. The member of Congress, the member of the House of Representatives that has raised the most money is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and it's not even close. She raised just under $20 million this year. And she's in a safe Democratic seat, meaning no Republican is ever going to beat her. So if you're writing this woman a check, you're not writing this woman a check because you think, okay, I'm going to hold that seat for the Democrats and the Republicans may take it away from us. You're writing that woman a check because you love what she's doing. You love her personally. The second member of Congress, or the one that has raised the second most amount of money, is the Speaker, Speaker Johnson. He raised $11 million. She raised $9 million more dollars than the Speaker. That's wild. Coming in third is Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Democratic leader. Okay, you would expect the Republican leader and the Democratic leader to be right there on the top. He raised $8 million, so 3 behind Speaker Johnson. Then you have Ro Khanna, who is coming in fourth place at $7 million. He's a guy who's constantly pitching himself as a potential statewide candidate here in California, either for the U.S. Senate, for governor, whatever. So he came in fourth. And then Jasmine Crockett came in fifth with $6 million. She is also in a very safe seat, and no Republican is going to beat her. And if the new map in Texas holds, she's going to have no seat. There's no place for her to run for re-election in the state of Texas, in a seat that she could theoretically win. So the money that she's raising is also because the troops in the field like her. Everyone else it makes sense on. with the possible exception of Ro Khanna. But if you think he might be the governor one day or the senator, and he's the congressman from Silicon Valley. So a lot of that money may come from Silicon Valley because Silicon Valley needs something. The government is constantly trying to regulate them. And if you want a voice in the room to stand up for your industry, you need to write some checks. So maybe that's who's giving him money. I don't know enough about his fundraising operation to comment on that. But I will say this. If AOC and Jasmine Crockett are both in the top 5, there is widespread support among Democrats for those two candidates. That money is not coming from interest groups. That money is not coming from people who need something from them because they're powerful. That money is coming from Democratic voters who love the direction that they're pushing the party in. And when you look at Gavin Newsom, what you're looking at is a guy who has spent his entire career as a professional politician. He did have some time at Plumpjack as a businessman, but for the most part, 2 terms as lieutenant governor, 2 terms as governor, 2 terms as mayor of San Francisco, the board of supervisors. He's been an elected official for most of his adult life. He's a traditional politician who is transactional with the interest groups that have business in front of him. A lot of his donations make perfect sense. You're the teachers union, you need something from the governor, you give him money. You are the SEIU, you want open borders, you want free health care, you want work rules, you give him money. All of that makes sense. With AOC and Jasmine Crockett, it's different. I would guess, and I'm just guessing here, but I would guess that most of those donations are small dollar donations. It's people watching MSNBC getting all worked up at night with Rachel Maddow or Nicole Wallace or whomever it is that's on, and they see these people on as guests, AOC or Jasmine Crockett or whoever, and they go, yeah, I like what I'm hearing from you. And I love the eyelashes. Yeah. Let me write you a check. And that's how they're ringing the cash register. So when it's an organic, natural sort of situation of the public just warming up to them, or at least the Democratic electorate warming up to them, that could be hard to beat in a Democratic primary, depending on where that support is coming from. Because Gavin Newsom is trying to live in both worlds now. For most of his career, he was a traditional politician. Now he's trying to become a bomb thrower too, which is why he hired the cast from Glee to run his social media accounts. He's looking at these numbers, at what AOC is raising and what Jasmine Crockett is raising, and he's saying to himself, okay, I need organic support among the troops or this isn't going to happen. Because if there ever was a cycle that the Democratic Party's preferred candidate is going to be knocked out by some insurgent, it's probably going to be in 2028. Because the Democratic Party, the last time around, told Democratic voters, we don't need a primary. Let's rig the primary so we get Grampy Joe again. And that blew up in their face like a hillbilly's rifle. So now all of these insurgents are speaking directly to the people, and boy, oh boy, is it paying off for them. I don't know if Gavin Newsom can outraise this. I don't know if Gavin Newsom, in a toe-to-toe matchup with AOC in the Democratic primary, can raise more money than her. She has demonstrated that she has the ability to do that, as Jasmine Crockett has in Texas. And I know the Democrats do not want Jasmine Crockett to run for U.S. Senate in that Texas primary because she would be likely to lose in the general election. I don't know how you stop that if she can raise this kind of bread. Because let's face it, Raising the most amount of money doesn't always mean you're going to be the winning candidate, but it certainly gives you a leg up on the competition. You have more resources. You have the ability to build higher name ID. And if it's small dollar donations, you have a robust base of support that you can then show to Democratic primary voters and show to interest groups and show to other candidates, proves that you have a good relationship with the people who will be voting in that primary. I know a lot of people dismissed her as a bartender and a nut and a socialist and someone that has no shot at winning any kind of election outside of a heavily Democratic district. If I'm Gavin Newsom and I'm looking at those fundraising numbers, I am scared to death because those fundraising numbers show she can beat him. And we know Gavin Newsom better than anyone else. We know he has 1,000,001 problems, including his chief of staff being brought up on charges. God knows what we're going to find out when we start pulling at strings on that one. If he doesn't look at her as a unique threat to his path to the Democratic nomination, he's a fool. I not only think she can be competitive with him, I think she can beat him. What say you at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222? Do you think AOC could beat Gavin Newsom in a primary? I do. She's raised $20 million this year, more than any other member of Congress, including the Speaker of the House and the Democratic leader. That is impressive, and that should make Gavin Newsom lose sleep at night. What say you at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222? Could AOC defeat Gavin Newsom in a Democratic primary? Your call's coming up right here on The John Phillips Show. It's The John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. There will not be a live show tomorrow or Friday. We'll be back on Monday. Randy will be back from vacation as well. But we can get your emails all through the weekend if you feel the need to contact us. So definitely send us a note if that's what you're looking to do. All right, let's go to the phones and go to Andy in Torrance. Andy, hello.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good.
I definitely think that AOC can beat Newsom in a primary. Do you recall how they used to call Bill Clinton Slick Willie? Well, Newsom is slick. I mean, he's slicker than deer snot on a doorknob. And at the national level, people are going to see it. Okay, AOC just has a big mouth, but people are listening to her, and I think therein lies the difference. I would love to see his ego get just put in a dumpster, but and as for me, as what she's raised, he can use his own money, but still, I think at the national level, I think they already do see right through the guy. I have friends across the country that I talk to, and they're in amazement that I still live in this state. Anyway,
I remember back in the old days, and you probably remember this too, Andy, when you would travel and you would tell people you were from California, they would ask you a bunch of questions. They thought of it as this exotic place. Oh, do you see movie stars whenever you go out? What's the Golden Gate Bridge like? What's the Hollywood sign like? What's Disneyland like? And now they look at you like you're on drugs.
Oh, I got to share this with you. I had a friend from Ohio come here many years ago, and he wanted to go to Hollywood and Vine. I said, Joe, you really don't want to go down there. He says, come on, let's go. We'll take my wife and go down there. So we get to we park. There's a parking lot right behind a building at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. And we walk to the corner, and there's a guy urinating on the building. I go, now you're in Hollywood, Joe. Welcome to Hollywood. Anyway, that's it. Have a great day.
All right, you too. And that call reminded me of the phrase, no one goes to Red Lobster to order the chicken. And right now, if Democratic primary voters are looking for someone who hates Donald Trump, who is a genuine left-winger, why would you go with the guy who's just playing the role, which is what Gavin Newsom's doing? He is a gentry class wine salesman who is a Democrat, a partisan Democratic career elected official. He is now playing the role of someone who hates Trump with the hot, hot hate of 1,000 suns. But not long ago, the two of them had a good relationship when Trump came out during the fires and they were surveying the damage that had been done. And Newsom was even talking about how they have a working relationship. And then he saw the tide turn within the Democratic Party, and then he realized he has to present himself in a different way. Well, if you're looking for someone who's a true blue socialist who really does genuinely hate Donald Trump, there are people in that party who fit that bill, and AOC is one of them. Gavin Newsom is playing that role now, but why would you trust the guy who's playing a role when you can get someone who is authentically that person? That's going to be his problem. Let's go to Carol in the Bay Area. Carol, hello.
Hi, thank you so much. My name's Carol Olson. I'm 71. I'm California, born and bred in the Bay Area. We have been watching Gavin Newsom since the beginning. I mean, he does everything he can to get attention, and we know exactly what he does, and we're sick of it. And you bet she can win, because there is more than just people against what he is doing. There is a spiritual tidal wave that is out there. And we are done. We are so done. Open your PG&E bill. Look at how much you are paying 20% on top for some bond that is going to cover what the the Commission for the Public Utility Commission. 20% goes to ferret out who's paying the cost for the bond for the wildfires that his people, that he put in place, and others like him. It's such hypocrisy. And we're just throwing our money away. We're tired of it.
Well, you notice that when Gavin Newsom decided that he wanted to go national, he wasn't running on his record as governor of California. Because if he ran on his record as governor of California, he wouldn't make it out of Iowa. He wouldn't make it out of the first caucus because there's no way you can spin his performance here as being successful. He has got to change his public persona as someone who is not a successful governor of California, but as someone who is willing to fight Donald Trump tooth and nail every step of the way. And that's what he's doing right now. Go back to the recall election. When he was running on his record and trying to explain to people that he's done a good job as governor, he was losing. There was a moment in time that he was going to lose that recall election. And it was only until he made it a referendum on Donald Trump and made it about national politics that he was able to save his bacon. If and when he runs for president, he's not going to run as the governor of California. He's going to run as the Trump hater because that's the only way he can get by. All right, that does it for us this week. We'll be back on Monday for another edition of the John Phillips Show at noon. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.